good morning, afternoon, or evening, and welcome to the Bloody Disgusting Network. The following show is just horrifying. Beware.
Sheriff, you're not cheating on your wife if you eat my lemon square.
Your lemon squares taste like ass.
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking ancient black sin. We're talking jump scares. And we're talking there's something wrong with Arena. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking, I've never been unhappy before. Things have always gone swell for me, Joe.
Oh my God. The white male privilege.
It's so funny because I don't think it was a joke back then.
No, I don't think so either.
But yeah, everyone, we are discussing Jacques Tourneur's 1942 classic Cat People. A classic of the genre. I already said a classic. A hallmark of the genre.
A classic hallmark. No, wait, that's something different too.
But okay, wait. So why don't we bring in our expert guest on this, though? Because, yeah, we have someone who is really, really excited to talk about this movie, everyone. And, okay, so she is the author of the upcoming book, Queer for Fear, Horror Film and the Queer Spectator, which will analyze the relationship queer people have to horror films, building upon decades of theory that previously emphasized horror's queerness as being subtextual, allegorical, and figurative. Please welcome Dr. Heather Petrocelli.
Hi, thank you. So happy to be here. And I'm just going to quickly say it is proper to say it's Jacques Tourneur's Cat People, but I would say Jacques Tourneur and Val Lewton's Cat People.
Yeah, that's fair. Because big writing contribution from Lewton, right?
I mean, yes, I'm sure. I'm saying I'm sure we'll get into it. I have no idea if we will, but yes, like Lewton he was a meticulous producer, so he had a hand in every film that he was part of. A very deep hand.
I'll say I always feel bad because I just refer to I'm doing it right now. I refer to all of his films as Lewton's films. Like, I often don't even give the directors the credit they're probably due. It just feels like Lewton truly did. He had ownership over every component of these films, and I feel like you can see it when you look at his oeuvre.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I actually always call it Val Lewton's Cat People.
Yes, exactly.
So, Heather, when would you want to come and talk about this movie?
Do I give the real answer?
Yeah, give us the real answer. Oh my God, that has me more enticed, actually.
Well, I thought you guys asked me to talk about this movie.
I was going to say, it's not exciting. I reached out to Heather because I was like, this is a perfect film for her.
I'm sorry. Why is this a perfect film for you, Heather?
Well, I will say, I'm not a person that deals in favorites. It's not my, I just don't believe in them because things hit you for different reasons at different times, blah, blah, blah. But a number of years ago, a friend of mine, Stacey Ponder from Gaylords of Darkness, she had asked if I would do like a thing where I do my top 20 favorite films. Right. And I was like, I don't do favorites. And she's like, shut the fuck up. Just do the favorites. And so
sounds like Stacey. Yep.
And I did. And I wound up doing it chronologically because I thought that was an easy way of kind of working around what my favorite is. But when I got to the 40s, I did Cat People. So yeah, it's a film that we'll get into it. I can talk about it for a long time because it's a film that gives you no answers, and the way you can analyze it, people will be continually analyzing it for, decades and years to come. So,
yeah. Joe, and you had seen this film before?
I had, yeah. So I've seen a couple of the Lewton staples. So we covered The Seventh Victim last year with David Demchak, and that was one that I had been kind of hot and cold on when I first watched it. But Cat People was like an immediate favorite when I first watched it back in college. And it was my introduction to Lewton. So I almost feel like I started with the best. But maybe it's better to think of it the way that you're describing, Heather, which is that this is just one of the ones that I think has both the simplest answer in terms of a reading. Like, people can look at this and say, yeah, this is exactly what this movie's about. But I think it's also one of the more complex ones. Like this one and I Walked with a Zombie, to me, are the richest texts.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a first-time watch for me, but funnily enough, I had recently just watched Shudder's 101 Scariest Movie Moments, and this is on there, and for the pool scene, and this is one of the 12 films I hadn't seen on their list, and I posted something on Twitter, and I was like, hey, like, you know, what should I prioritize? And literally the first reply was from someone that went, well, I just watched Cat People, you can skip that one. And I was like, oh, well, I'm actually literally about to cover that in like 2 weeks, so...
Also, to that person... Go fuck yourself.
Yes, I double that.
I think it's just that when people, again, when they're told, oh, it's something really, really scary, and you give them a movie from the 40s, people have trouble adjusting to what was scary in the 40s. And maybe like, you know, I mean, we have a jump scare here, and like the pool scene, I do think is very scary. But for your modern viewer, they might be like, well, this is kind of boring.
I can see it. I politely disagree.
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated, I guess, because, well, what is scary, right? There's so many ways to define it. And there are actually scary layers of this because this is a film all about the other. And there's a scariness to the fact that, like, you know, we're going to make it queer because it is just a queer subtext throughout the entire film to me. But some other kind of others in the world could put their own, you know, marginalization into the narrative. And there's a lot of scary stuff in that. But if you're looking for, you know, gore, I mean, I don't even know what the fuck they're even wanting.
Well,
but they're wrong. I'm just saying they're wrong.
To clarify, I am not saying this movie is boring, but I'm saying if you should go show this to, let's say, your average 17-year-old that's out in the streets today, they're probably going to find this movie very dull.
Okay, but here's what I'm going to say back. You have to contextualize everything, right?
Yes.
Period. So I just want to say, when this movie came out in 1942, like that pool scene with the way the sound is mixed, people were literally losing their fucking minds and screaming in the theaters. So you have to give it, it's like almost like you give it its respect for what it was in the time and how it moved the needle forward. Right. To where you are today, where you can watch, I mean, literally we can watch almost anything, right? Like the things we see now, you're just like, well, there we go.
Yeah, but I always feel like I have to give that caveat of, y'all remember, in the 40s, like, people did find this scary, and you can see it there, but you just can't put our modern scare tactic, like, judgments on a movie from the 40s, you know?
Yes. Right. And I wouldn't, I mean, it is a horror film, but I wouldn't even tell people, hey, go watch this horror film. I would go watch this incredible movie.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me a little bit sad when we have to have these conversations about older films. And I feel like that line even is a bit tenuous to the point where sometimes we cover films from like the 70s and 80s and people say, ooh, well, that's just a little bit old. Why aren't you doing more contemporary stuff? And okay, way to make me feel like a big pile of salt in the corner that gets blown away in the dust storm. But I think at the end of the day, Heather, you're absolutely right. It's all about context, but I think it's also just really important that we remain media literate, right? Like we need to be able to understand how films were produced back in different decades by different people, different countries even, and be able to provide that kind of context, but then also appreciate the kind of artistry and how the film ages and what its influence is. Like you can look at this movie as a piece of art because I think it is just so fucking gorgeous, but also like I look at this film and I think this is the first maybe jump scare I've seen in a horror film. And I'm sure somebody will debate me on that, but to me, this is like a really clear example of what people now consider the definition of scary, where they want jump scares a la Conjuring, Insidious all the time. And I'm like, well, it's right there in that sidewalk chase scene with the bus.
Well, it's kind of like a thing where it's like, you know, respect your elders, right? Like, honestly, I gain more of an appreciation for modern horror films after watching things from 1980 just because it's like look where we came from, right? So I don't know, but speaking of learning about production of the olden days, the days of yore, let's talk about how this movie got made.
I'm gonna give that segue a C+.
So, Cat People was the first of the films produced by Val Lewton at RKO, and its success permitted him to extend a brief but extraordinary creative run through 10 more pictures made between 1942 and 1946. And I don't know if we did like a Val Lewton primer in our episode on The Seventh Victim, and I don't really have much of one here, but just a quick thing. So Lewton had originally gotten a foothold in the film business through his aunt, the great Russian actor Alla Nazimova, and subsequently served producer David O. Selznick at MGM.
Wait, I just have to interrupt and ask, did you guys go into the whole history of Alla Nazimova?
That...
I don't know if we did that.
I'm just saying, just because bitch was like amazing. She was an out person during the silent era who threw crazy queer parties. So the reason I think it's important is that Val and his mother and his sister lived with her when they came to the United States. And I think that kind of very queer influence, being, raised in a household with Nazimova, totally made a difference in who he turned out to be. So, okay, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
That's excellent. But yeah, so Selznick is our, go listen to our Rebecca episode on that. And so he worked with Selznick for 8 years as a writer, story editor, and general literary advisor. But in March of 42, he ended his relationship with Selznick to go work for RKO Radio Pictures' Charles Corner, becoming the head of a new unit created to develop B-movie horror films in an attempt, partially in an attempt to compete with Universal's horror films at the time. And this would have been just after The Wolfman came out.
Right.
And they were desperate because they were in RKO was in a massive financial crisis because of their boy wonder, Orson Welles.
Yeah. Yes, because Citizen Kane, while generally considered one of the greatest film ever made, had a lot of controversy during it.
Well, and it was a notorious flop, so we regard it as a huge classic, but it was a big money loser at the time.
Yeah, massive. And then the Magnificent Ambersons came right on the heels, and that totally has a whole history that escalated. So basically, RKO was really in dire straits. So
they were hurting.
Well, and that from the Magnificent
Ambersons.
The Magnificent Ambersons, because this Cat People uses some of the sets from that film because they were trying to cut corners.
Yes.
Well, sure, but I mean that's pretty common practice for these times as well. RKO would have owned sets, and they would have said, "Cool, how do we make 12 more movies using this same thing, just lighted a little differently?"
Yeah. Well, Cat People had a budget of around $135,000, which was significantly smaller than Universal had for, let's say their Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman in 43. But more than the $97,000 that the Poverty Row studio PRC spent on the 1940 film The Devil Bat. So we're looking it's not a big budget film, but it's also not micro budget for the time.
Mm-hmm.
Lewton selected most of the film's main crew, including Jacques Turner and writer DeWitt Bodine, and again we have another queer in Mr. Bodine, who all worked on The Treatment. So these were people Lewton had connected with through their work with Selznick, and Lewton called Turner from RKO to direct the film after RKO's Charles Corner attended a party where it was suggested to him that he develop a film with the title Cat People, and Lewton wasn't really sure what to do with the title, and he basically said, I don't want to make a cheap horror movie that the studio is expecting, but something intelligent and in good taste. Bodine had previously watched British and American horror and suspense films that he felt were typical of what they did not want to do, feeling that werewolves, vampires, and man-made monsters were overexploited by that time.
Oh boy, if he could have only seen the future.
Oh my god. Here's the thing. I'm not generally a werewolf, person, so I wasn't, not looking forward to this movie, but just given that it's whole, we have a thing turning into something else and blah, blah, blah. But I like this more than The Wolfman, personally.
It's just a very different kind of film. And amusingly enough, you could easily look at that budget as a restriction to why we get the film that we do compared to something like The Wolfman and its contemporaries. But oh gosh, this is going to sound like it's all hoity-toity, but I just think there's an elegance to the way that they handle the creature in this, where they're not trying to stun people with the practical effects because they just didn't have the money for it. So they're like, okay, how do we get creative around what could be considered a restriction?
Mm-hmm. Which we see in horror through all the decades after this.
Yeah, I think that there's a direct line between Val Lewton's work and someone like Oz Perkins.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, so Bodine then began researching cat-related literature, including Ambrose Bierce's The Eyes of the Panther and Margaret Irwin's Monsieur Seeks a Wife. Lewton decided to base the film on Algernon Blackwood's 1906 short story Ancient Sorceries, which had a contemporary setting and involved a French town inhabited by a group of devil-worshipping cat people. Unfortunately, the rights were about to be purchased, so Lewton changed his mind at the last minute and told Bodine that the film would then be set in contemporary New York and involve a love triangle between a man, a foreign woman obsessed with abnormal fears, and a female office worker. And so Bodine described the screenplay as a group project, saying Lewton had the original idea and wrote the treatment and the screenplay, collaborating with Turner and Lewton, and later the film's editor, Mark Robson. So by May of 42, Bodine had a 50-page treatment completed for Cat People, thanks to Mr. Lewton.
Wow. Okay.
We haven't started filming yet, though, so on July 14th, 1942, it was, of course, submitted to the censor board, and there were 3 major problems with the screenplay that they had to kind of work around. So,
here we go.
Yeah, so of course we had the general gruesomeness and horror angles of the film, the suggestion of Irina's illegitimacy, which I'm assuming means her immigrant status?
It could just be that because she's a foreigner, we don't really, we don't know anything about her family, but then everything she tells us about what happens in the village suggests that she could be either illegitimate or something like that.
Yeah, she's not legally in the country. She escaped and just came here.
I think more her character is in question in terms of where did she come from? Who are these people? Are they good?
Got it. Well, the big other problem with this screenplay was the overarching problem that Oliver and Irina are not consummating their marriage.
I'm sorry, as a Canadian.
They had a problem with the fact that they weren't consummating the marriage? Okay, go ahead.
Basically, because then the entire plot of the film, if you will, is revolving around this woman who won't have sex with her husband. So it's not, I don't think it's the fact that they weren't having sex, but the fact that it just then made the entire film about their sex life or lack thereof.
Right.
Okay, now I want the Canadian take on this.
Okay, so I was going to say, oh, well, that's hilarious from a Canadian perspective because y'all are so obsessed with sex. But now that I understood, oh, no, that perfectly tracks with the U.S. Absolutely terrified of sex. You folks are the arenas of the film world.
We're so terrified of sex that just the fact that people aren't having sex is still too much sex for this movie.
I mean, it's really amazing, actually.
So, principal photography began on July 28th of 1942 at RKO's Gower Gulch Studios in Hollywood. And apparently Turner was nearly fired 3 days into shooting after executive producer Lou Ostro saw the dailies, called Lewton, and told him to fire him because he didn't like what he was seeing. Lewton then contacted RKO's Kerner, who viewed the raw footage, and he's like, I think it looks fine. And the movie continued production.
Bizarre.
Another wrinkle was that Simone, who plays Irina, frequently clashed with co-stars. Occasionally Turner during the shoot, but she apparently, and again, I don't even like reporting on this shit because it's it's a woman in the 40s and there's a lot of sexism, but apparently she had a significant temper, and I have that in quotes, but Jane Randolph, who plays Alice, felt that Simone frequently upstaged her during their scenes together to the point that Turner confronted Simone and chastised her in French. Simone apparently intentionally poured coffee on one of her costumes in order to halt production for the day, which is a true diva move.
Which, I mean, first of all, I'm giving her snaps. Secondly, have you ever read the book The Sewing Circle?
Mm-mm.
So it's all about lesbians in Hollywood because,
Nice.
And basically, Lewton's auntie, Nazimova, is central to it. But the reason Simone was supposedly... what was the word you used? Temperamental? Is that our air quote word?
Yeah.
Was that Dietrich told her, act like a fucking diva. You are the star. You will become the star that you behave like. Kind of So there was a little bit of kind of sapphic play behind the scenes to kind of have Simone be a little temperamental.
Well, and again, though, it's if I hear words from a man calling a woman temperamental in the 40s, I'm kind of was she temperamental or was she just saying words? I don't know.
Was she just existing as a person?
Yeah, I think she probably, my guess is that she probably had opinions and said things.
Right.
But also was purposefully putting on airs in a way that thought that was going to help her Hollywood career, because she was relatively new to Hollywood at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but she was a huge star in France, was she not?
Yeah, she was a pretty big star in France, yes.
Yeah. Well, on top of that, Turner was also clashing with higher-ups at RKO who wanted to see more of the cat and none of this shadow nonsense. That's my word, not theirs.
Okay, well, you gave us a fucking budget of pennies. What do you want us to do?
Well, and it even went over budget. So filming concluded in August, so about a month later. The film's final cost sheet was about $141,000, which was about $22,000 over budget. So,
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, the shadows, while they were probably cost-effective, still were not as cost-effective as they wanted it to be.
I'm blaming that budget overage on the fact that they made them have all those scenes with the actual leopard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting it on. I'm putting it on them.
Yeah, because there's a couple insert shots of the leopard where I'm like, this doesn't really seem like it belongs in here, and we're like, oh, we just have to see the cat to make sure it's here.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, I'm sure. I think we're gonna get to it, but like that whole scene that happens with Alice and Oliver at their work, I think that there was never meant to be any actual leopard.
Yeah. So, that definitely feels like they got a note that said, we need to see more leopard. Can you please insert it later?
Exactly.
Also, are we saying panther or are we saying leopard?
Oh, do we keep saying leopard? It was a panther.
Wait, okay, wait. Is it like a square rectangle situation, though, where like all panthers are leopards, but not all leopards are panthers?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Or what was Orphan First Kill? All macaws are parrots, but not all parrots are fucking macaws. Anyway, pick whatever you want. Say whatever you want. I won't stop you.
I looked it up. A panther is a version of a leopard.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, but the leopards that are not black are not panthers.
Right.
Okay. We spent a lot of time figuring this out, but yes, panther.
Excellent
it's an educational podcast.
Well, so prior to Cat People's official release, the higher-up executives at RKO saw the film at a studio projection room and expressed disapproval. So early test screenings took place in October at the RKO Hill Street Theater, a testing site for sneak previews with the cast and crew in attendance. And apparently the film opened up with a Disney cartoon about a kitten, which led to the audience literally catcalling and meowing during the film.
Wow, good to see that audiences were still shit in 1940.
But apparently as the story progressed, the audience did calm and become more involved with the film. Unfortunately, they didn't really have much time to tinker with it if the studio wanted anything to happen, because by late October of 42, Lewton and Turner were already shooting their next film together, as Joe mentioned, I Walked with a Zombie.
Yes.
So Cat People had its world premiere at the Rialto Theater in Manhattan on December 5th, 1942, and was released regionally the following day in New York City. It was popular for its first 2 weeks at the Rialto, where it took in about $17,000. For comparison, the Wolfman grossed about $19,500 in the same theater the previous December. So, holding up pretty well against Universal Monsters.
Comparable, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Got a wide release on December 25th, so Christmas Day in 1942, where it was distributed by, again, RKO Radio Pictures. It broke the attendance record for the Hawaii Theater in Los Angeles and was reissued theatrically about 10 years later in 1952.
I love that idea. So rarely do we get reissues of things nowadays unless it's,
Avatar,
yeah, it's like a Spielberg movie or something like that. Can you imagine them just being like, hey, for one weekend only, we're going to re-release Hereditary into theaters? It's like, oh, shit, okay.
It really fucks with me when I go to Box Office Mojo and I look at the total, and then I'm like, oh, god damn it, there was a fucking re-release that's contributing to this goddamn box office total. The film's box office receipts are disputed. Film historians have estimated that the box office take for Cat People is $4 million domestically and $4 million in foreign markets. Variety estimates its rentals in 1943 as $1.2 million, whereas RKO files report that domestic rentals were about $360,000 and foreign rentals were $175,000. All this to say, no one agrees on how much money this movie made.
Crazy spread. I mean, that's
yeah.
Like you said, 8 million to what? Something like 500,000.
Yes, exactly. But so it's important to note that the rentals are not equivalent to gross revenue, and assuming that the revenue was split evenly between theaters and the studio, the film grossed over $1 million. Nevertheless, however much money it did make, it was still considered excellent business.
Mm-hmm. Which is the most important thing, because it's part of why this movie ended up gaining a legacy, not because it's a great fucking movie, but because it was a big hit. And that's important for Lewton's career.
Yeah, which, I mean, yeah, this being the first of those 10 films he would do at RKO. But unfortunately, while the money was good, the reviews were mixed. So, like, New York Times, New York Herald, the Tribune, New York Sunday News, they all were like, thumbs down, this is not a good movie. We had critics saying that it was trying too hard to be a melodrama. It was trying to be a melodrama, but it doesn't try hard enough. Okay. A labored and obvious attempt to induce shock, and its themes are explored at tedious and graphically unproductive length.
It's like 73 minutes. What are you even talking about?
It's a B picture. Get fucked.
Oh my God.
It's 1942. Like, what else do they have going on? What is exciting to them?
I don't know. Is it reassuring or horrible? Just really people are just always assholes.
Right?
Funnily enough, though, so while the New York reviews were really mixed, it actually got better reviews once it opened in LA. So Variety had said, the film relies upon developments of surprises confined to psychology and mental reaction rather than transformation to grotesque and marauding characters for visual impact on the audience. We have grim and unrelenting, a dose of horror best suited to addicts past the curable stage, which I don't know what that means.
I don't love that language.
Potent. Oh, well, here's another one. Potent stuff straight from the psychopathic clinic.
Okay.
A fantastic story, reasonably produced and directed. Reasonably produced and directed.
I just... that's all I
Good job. You cleared a bar, and it was low, and we're going to celebrate you for that.
It's a reasonably sufficient piece of art.
I'm going to use that in my next review.
Slap it on the poster. But yeah, retrospective reviews are obviously kinder to it. It is on Roger Ebert's list of great films. In 1993, the Library of Congress selected Cat People for preservation in the National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. In terms of legacy, we do have a sequel that came 2 years later called The Curse of the Cat People. I did not watch this, but by all accounts, it's almost like a children's fairy tale.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy ghost story kind of.
Right.
It's really good. You should watch it. It's very different in a lot of ways, but it has it's its own movie. It just happens to be. I'm not going to say too much. Just you should watch it.
Yeah.
It's not long. None of these movies are long.
It's Robert Weiss directing it, so that's perking my ears up right there.
Yeah, just don't go into it being like, oh, this is directly going to follow Cat People, because it has some linkages, but it also is a very different movie.
Got it.
And it is very queer too. It's very, very easy to deeply read the queer subtext of Curse of the Cat People.
Well, and then the other connection is, of course, Dr. Judd makes a return appearance and the seventh victim, which we did discuss. I remember discussing that on that episode, which again is funny considering, spoiler alert, he dies in this movie. But
makes no sense.
And then finally, before I pass the torch off to you, Joe, we did have a remake of this film in 1982, directed by Paul Schrader, starring Natasha Kinski. I did watch this. I double featured the original and this film, and that was an experience, I will tell you that. Tonal
whiplash. Heather, I'm going to go out on a limb, much like a panther, and assume that you have seen the remake?
Yeah, I just rewatched it, actually, for the project I'm doing where I'm watching like all of the favorites.
Nice.
So I thought, well, this will be nice just to kind of remind myself, and I was sad to be reminded.
Yeah, I know that movie has its defenders, and it's probably not fair to judge it by comparison, but on this Criterion Blue, they actually have a featurette about, the cinematography comparison, because they interview the guy who did it for the Schrader film, and he's like, yeah, we really wanted to try to do our own spin, and I think we really accomplished like a nostalgic evocation of the original, and they were showing clips, and I was like, you've got Annette fucking O'Toole's tits out in the pool sequence. This is heresy.
To be fair, because I did watch this too, he does say that they tried to shoot the pool scene exactly like the original because they didn't think they could do it any better.
Except for tits.
No. He doesn't say that, Trace. He says they filmed it in the same way, but then they used new technology so they could get the camera out over the pool, which they couldn't do in the original.
Right. They have the crane shot, but generally they didn't try to alter it too much outside of that fact. Whereas like with the stalking scene, they do change a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think what it boils down to is that in the original, in the 42 version, there is an agency and kind of queer feminist power to the story of the origin story of the cat people. Mm-hmm. You know, they were the most powerful and evil witches who, you know, escaped into the mountains, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Whereas in just like literally the opening scene of the first one, it's like kind of sexually sacrificing young women to panthers, right? Mm. So there's an agency to the first one that's completely lacking in the second one, and that probably could be analyzed in the role of women in society. And like, you know, maybe in the 40s they felt much more secure in the, you know, cis hetero patriarchy to have there be kind of play, whereas in the 80s they were like kind of starting to freak out, like, oh,
we've just had a decade of women's liberation and we're terrified of women again.
But it's like, because we lose out on a lot of the queer subtext in the remake, but we insert a new character played by Malcolm McDowell, and then we put incest in there instead.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I mean, I think I literally wrote in my post about it because I like will write about just my reactions to these films. And I try not to be a dick. I mean, I really I try to remember that these are someone's, like they are a horror loving queer's favorite film, like top 5 favorite horror film. So, but then I just watched some of them and I'm like, oh, come on, man. So for this
what are you thinking with this?
Yeah, with this one, I was like, so you just made it super incesty and like cis heteronormative? Like, no, you missed like everything that was important about the first one.
I will say this. So I was never bored watching this remake. And while I don't really like, I'm not going to jump at the chance to watch it again anytime soon. I was actually more fascinated with it more than I was like enjoying it. So like I was just fascinated by every choice being made, and it is stylish. It's just like, it's very long and it's kind of, it feels a little bit emotionally hollow to me because they're going for a lot of shock factor, especially in the last act of that film.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even just the description of like Malcolm McDowell scenery chewing and lots of nudity and incest. I'm like, okay, this just honestly sounds like a horror movie in the 80s, right? It's what we were doing. It's a product of its time, much like this 42 film is a product of its time. It just feels like one of those, you know, when we bemoan a remake because it loses something that's essential to the original. Like you did it, but you also seem to lose what made the original so special.
But at the same time, though, it's not a carbon copy remake. So like those, I get what both of you were saying. It didn't bother me as much because the film is so different from this one that I was kind of like, okay, I'll let this slide a bit, even though, I can see, why you would want it to be a bit more similar, at least with the themes that we're dealing with here. But
I just don't want it to be like as misogynistic as it is. I mean, that's kind of what it kind of boils down to me. It's like just think of the actual very endings of both films. And
Well, Heather, you're just asking for too much now. Come on.
I actually know. When we talk about Oliver in this film, I want to compare him to Oliver in that remake because on a viewing, I was like, oh, good for they made Oliver so much better in the remake. But then, like thinking about it, I was like, wait. He has hit the love of his life in a cage in a zoo for the rest of his life.
Oh my God. Like he's a total piece of shit. At least like the Oliver Reed in the first one, just like a milquetoast pud. Like you're just like The second one, I know this is like not the like road we're supposed to be going down, but like when I rewatched it, my memories before I had seen it, I hadn't seen it probably for almost 40 years. Like that's how long it had been since I'd seen it. Wow. And I had really warm memories of it. And I think it was honestly because I was really, really young and I was watching naked Natasha Kinski. Like, I mean.
Yeah, you get full Bush in that movie.
Yeah.
Blinded by the beauty.
I was, I think. And then I watched it this time and I'm like, what the fuck? And like, you know, if I weren't so lazy, I would just write a book about the fact, like, just what did all these films that I watched that I loved that actually kind of hated me, what did it do to me? Like
yeah.
It's a little bit rough.
That could be a dangerous book to write, but
It'd be an interesting book.
Sounds interesting. Yeah. I mean, like, your experience does sound distinctly gendered, but I would also argue there's probably a pullback version of that where we as queers could talk about, like, what is all the extreme homophobia of a certain generation of horror films? Like, what did that do to us, and how did that kind of fuck us up, too?
Well, that's why I'm excited to talk about this film then, and how we are going to make the reads on everything going on in this film, because I was going back and forth with, oh, like, this is actually a really interesting positive portrayal. Oh, I don't know if I like the way this is turning, because I feel like, but again, it's also written by a queer man, and we've got Val Lewton here with this big old lesbian aunt, like, guiding his path.
Right. Also, I'm going to give that segue an A.
Take us away, Joe. What's this about?
All right. So we open with a presumably fictitious quote by Dr. Judd, who was played by Tom Conway.
I have help for you. So yes, this is credited to Dr. Lewis Judd, but the script credits this quote to Dr. Sigmund Freud.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, folks, we are going to get into the rabbit hole of psychoanalysis. I do believe we talked about it on The Seventh Victim as well, because it is in there. It was very popular. It's important to remember that in the 40s, therapy and psychologists were kind of the new thing, and people were excited and trepidatious, but it was very much part of the cultural consciousness. So that's why you're seeing it a lot in movies of this time.
Yeah.
Okay, so the quote is, "Even as the fog continues to lie in the valleys, so does ancient sin cling to the low places, the depressions in the world consciousness." What do we think about starting a very brief movie with such a deep quote?
I don't know what this is saying. I'm not going to lie to you. I have no idea what this means.
Well, I think it's Lewton's influence. He was a very book-learned man. He liked to think deeply about things. He was incredibly well-read. He came from a very intellectual family. So I think that for him, yeah, because it ends also with
another quote.
Yeah,
another quote from, God, who is it? It's someone.
John Donne from the Holy Sonnets.
There we go.
Oh yeah, which is like what is this, like some fucking like 16th century poet, like.
Yeah, and that quote: "But black sin hath betrayed to endless night my world, both parts, and both parts must die."
I preferred the latter, and maybe it's just because it's less made up, I guess. That one to me feels poetic. This one is very much a mood setter. Like, I think it does connote, okay, you're in for more of an intellectual, psychological ride. Like, it's very much priming the audience. This isn't going to be cheap exploitation scares.
Right.
And yet at the same time, I do think it's just a little too opaque to mean anything to start a movie off.
I mean, okay. Even as fog continues to lie in the valleys, so does ancient sin cling to the low places. What are the low places?
Queerness.
Yes.
The depressions in the world consciousness. Okay, so yeah, so we're saying queerness or any otherness, really.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's any otherness, because, like, let's just kind of like, so
Lay it on the
narrative.
table.
Yeah, like narratively, we're talking about a Serbian immigrant, right? But behind the scenes, we're talking about a French actress, a Russian-born producer, a French director. Who else? Who else is the immigrants on the film? Like, there's a lot of people who came in, and the United States has United States is literally founded on terrible things. So there's just a xenophobia. So I do believe that the otherness can play into lots of different marginalizations. But I think this really is, this poetic suggestiveness out the gate, I do believe is about queerness based on DeWitt.
Well, I think too, I mean, the word sin is kind of like a ding, 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 ding bell right there, right?
Yeah.
Also, cinematographer Nicholas Musuraca, Italian.
Oh yeah,
immigrant.
Italian, exactly.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so after we get this, slightly confounding but apt opening quote, we start off at the Central Park Zoo, and we have Irena Dubrovna, who is played, as we've said, by Simone, and we've been saying Simone. Is it Simone Simon?
So I was saying that, but in the Criterion Blue, anytime she was referenced, they were saying Simone. And maybe it's because Simon is Simone in French.
Yeah, it's like Simone.
Yeah.
There's a slight difference between the two. That sounds ridiculous.
Okay.
Simone.
Like Simone.
I love it, and I'm never going to say her name again. So Irina is at the zoo. She's looking at the panther cage, and she is drawing, but she's not having a great time of it. She keeps throwing the drawings away, and her frustration attracts the attention of Oliver Reed, who is played by Kent Smith, who is a walking cardboard of an attractive white man.
Also, he's flirting with her with trash.
I mean, honestly, you gotta kind of respect the guy's game, because he basically says, look at this attractive lady. My way in is to basically say, hey, what's on the sketch pad? And it sort of works for him.
It was so, because I didn't know the plot of this movie going into it. I didn't know where we were going. And so I was kind of like, oh, like, this guy seems pretty nice. And just as the movie continued, I got angrier and angrier and angrier to the point where, too, when he says he's gonna divorce her, I was like, she literally fucking told you on day one. Yes. I can't do this. Mm-hmm. Fucking idiot.
I do love that right from the beginning she has agency. Like, he's trying to get with her, and she says, no, I'm not going to show you the sketch pad. She does reveal details about herself, and she's willing to go along with it. But, like, she isn't really interested in his romantic overtures. Like, she lays it down very clearly. She's not exactly new, but, like, she doesn't have any friends in town, and she's interested in him as a friend.
Yeah, she basically says, I don't want to fuck you. I will not fuck you. And he's like, you're such a silly woman. We'll see.
I'm going to marry you.
Tomorrow.
The time lapses in this movie are occasionally perplexing.
Yes.
It's like, I think it actually contributes to the mystery of the film. Like, it feels like you are caught up in this whirlwind romance, and then it makes all the more sense why she keeps getting frustrated with herself that she can't commit to this guy sexually, because you're like, well, is it maybe because you've only known him for a couple of days?
Well, that's just the movies. I mean, that's whatever. But, like, it's just, it is bizarre. It is bizarre.
So she does invite him into her apartment. It is filled with cats. So the original cat lady. And she then proceeds to tell him the story of King John of Serbia. And basically we get a slightly lengthened version of what you've already talked about, Heather, which is that the Christians in her town turned to witchcraft and Satan worshipping, and then King John came in and basically executed most of them, but the powerful ones, the smartest ones, escaped into the mountain, and we more or less get this curse that if the women of this town become sexually aroused, then they are likely to kill their lovers.
Yes, and I'm sorry, maybe because I'm blending the two probably, but it's only the remake that offers a way out of it, right? Because basically, once you turn into a cat, you just are a cat.
That's the new one, yeah.
Okay, got it.
But no, in both versions, you can go back and forth.
Well, okay, I'm sorry, because in the remake, you have to have sex with your brother. I'm sorry, you have to kill. Oh, you have to kill someone. Sorry,
you have to kill someone to get back into your human form.
But to not turn into a panther when you're fucking, you have to have sex with your sibling.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas in this one, there is no out. Like, there is no way to not turn into a panther after fucking.
It's basically celibacy or bust.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring in my one and only reference for this episode. It's by Elizabeth Irwin in a piece called Cat People, 1942, Coding Lesbianism via Otherness, and this is for Horror Homeroom. And Elizabeth says, Irina's story of her village being overrun by wicked people who did dreadful things echoes the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Given the specific references to religion throughout the film, this association is not accidental and helps to contextualize for the audience the perverse nature of the sexuality with which Irina struggles.
I mean, that's the whole thing. As I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm watching her as a lesbian. She cannot have sex because it is societally bad. Like, people don't want to see that. They don't want her to do it. It's like, immoral. And so she's just sitting there, like, watching all these cats, which are almost like a queer person watching porn, I guess. Like, I can't have it because society says no, but I'll watch this porn to like get my rocks off instead.
Wait. I need you to say that in a different way. What are you saying?
I think Trace is confused.
Yeah.
Trace, I think she's looking at the Panthers like, oh shit, this is what I could become. Like, there's a beauty and a grace to it, and sure, it could be seen as representing lesbianism, but I think she's more saying like, this is the danger, right? Like, this is what otherness embodied looks like, because if I actually succumb to my actual desires, I risk becoming this thing in the cage.
Yeah, sure. That sounds right.
She's not getting turned on by the Panthers.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it as an arousing thing. I meant it more as a thing where it's like, I can't be that. I can't be that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I always took it as she has a primal draw to them. Like when she has that whole scene where she's like, I couldn't not go, right?
Yeah.
There's like an actual primal draw to this, we'll call it a metaphysical connection to the big cats, right?
Okay.
So, and I just want, like, the whole movie starts, like, there's a whole foreshadowing when their whole like little meet cute happens, the sketch on her pad is how the whole film ends, which I think is a lovely touch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course that's also represented in the statue that she has of King John in her apartment. Like, so she's almost surrounded herself by this imagery that is kind of like, you can't succumb to this because this is what your life will become. Like, that path, that queer path, only leads to death.
So she has constant reminders of it around her, to be, just in case she's tempted to be like, nope, there's a cat. I might be a cat.
Yeah, I mean, it's like her, like, if we're just going to read it just as queerness, she is obsessed by the fear of the quote unquote evil inside her.
Right.
To the point that she doesn't live her authentic life. She's just
Exactly.
living this lie where she can't actually even experience the things that she should be able to experience because she's so afraid of it.
Yes, and then when she like we were talking about, when there's this time collapse and she's weirdly, all of a sudden they're married, the whole point is that she has these heteronormative failings. That's the premise of the whole thing. So, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, so at this point, she's basically said, like, oh, I'm really excited to finally have a friend here, and here's the story, and he just listens to her, and more or less, like, the modern-day equivalency of says, like, cool, I gotta go, but this was great, you're hot, let's do it again.
Yeah, you're not wrong, yeah.
He does not hear her throughout this entire movie, and through a contemporary lens, it is maddening.
Oh, in my notes, I think it's because when does he start to believe? Is it when they get attacked in the office? I wrote in my notes, I was like, oh, now he believes she's a fucking cat.
Yeah, because he was endangered.
Yep.
Yeah, the men do not come off well on this story.
No.
That's right. I was like, well, what are the other ones? The other ones are rapists.
Oh my God. I have some hot fucking takes that I saw on the internet when we get there.
Yes,
no.
Yeah. Okay, so we follow Oliver to work. He works as a draftsman for like a boat building place. Yeah. I was like, 1940s job. Okay. And we immediately meet his office coworker, Alice Moore, who is played by Jane Randolph. And I'm fascinated by not the relationship that Alice has with Oliver, but rather the way that Alice evolves throughout this movie, because it would be so easy to turn her into a predatory girl-on-girl bitch, where she's just like, oh, I've always loved him, and, this arena bitch. But early on, I think that Alice is a truly supportive friend to Oliver. Yeah.
I mean, I know people I've seen this movie a number of times over the years, and I've had people be like, well, I hate Alice. I'm like, actually, I really love Alice.
I love Alice.
I really love Alice. Bitch has got an A+ hat game.
Oh my God.
And just like something else you had just said about the fact that we're watching all of these draftsmen in this like cargo shipbuilding company, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting just to point it out, because it was a way that helped they had these constraints on their budget, but they took something. Universal horror always exists in mostly a faraway Gothic place that feels unknowable, and this would have felt very knowable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so modern and contemporary. Like, it feels vibrant in a way that the Universal films feel like very exotic.
Yes.
With Alice specifically, I mean, look, the scene where I was about to turn on her is, of course, the one where she tells Oliver, like, oh, I love you. I'm like, choose me, marry me. But given everything that happens afterwards, I mean, there's even a part where she says, like, I think you should go, like, look after your wife. So her confession to him felt less diabolically scheming and more like, I'm an adult telling you how I feel.
Yeah, it felt very
genuine, sincere.
Yeah,
and in a way that it's like, I've got to tell you this thing because to not do so wouldn't be authentic to me. But I don't even get the impression that she really wants him to choose her. It's just more, I had to say this so that you would know.
Yeah,
I just think of it as, I mean, I've already called him milquetoast once, but Oliver just, he really gets me. So,
he's not doing it for anybody.
Yeah, but he's got his abnormal queer woman, over here, and then he has Alice, the normal woman. So they just kind of seem like a kind of boring, safe heterosexual pairing.
See, though, will we call Alice a normal woman? Because, again, she's holding, like, a man, quote unquote, a man's position in this office. And it's really Irina playing sex games with her for the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I've seen her described as, like, a modern woman, but also this is where, unfortunately, I think we're lacking a little bit of context because we don't know exactly what her gig is.
Yeah.
But I think she's an assistant to the draftsman. That's why he's reading out the numbers to her and she's documenting.
But it's still a rank above secretary.
It is, yeah. Like, and as you said, Heather, I think even the hat game to me connotes that she has a certain amount of, like, wealth and privilege.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, let's just be real. Oliver does not deserve either of them.
Either of them.
No, God, no.
Yeah.
I mean, Oliver is the worst. Like, it's been a while since I've seen a male character in a film that I despise this much, that I'm supposed to root for, I think.
I'm going to put it out there. I remember you having absolute hatred and vitriol for Dracula's daughter, the dude in that one.
Oh, yeah. But again, that was like 2 years ago.
But I'm just like, I'm just going to say, two, like, kind of classic horror films with lesbian subtext where the men are all douches.
Yeah.
And terrible therapists.
Oh, my God. Dear Lord.
And all these men are complaining today, like, oh, like, of course the man's evil. It's like, look, go back to the 40s. It's been going on.
Newsflash: men have always been terrible. So Oliver has decided in his infinite wisdom, he met Irina at the big cat section of the zoo, so he's going to buy her a kitten because she must love cats.
Also, don't gift living things to people that you just met.
It's so weird to see a kitten in a box. I was like, oh, are we going to Schrodinger this? Oh my God. The joke would work better if I could pronounce the name correctly, but part of me was like, oh, there's another cut of this film where that kitten's already dead.
Well, there's holes in the box, but he constantly, like, the cat keeps pushing the lid up and he keeps pushing the lid down. I was like, dude, that cat does not want to be in that box.
I mean, it is a living thing. Yeah. So he gives it to her, and it does not go over well. Cats do not like her. So she suggests taking it back to the pet store. They go inside, and we get this psychic connection that all of the animals feel. So it's actually not just cats. It's pretty much all animals do not like Irina.
Yeah, all the fucking monkeys. Like, what? They could just buy monkeys in the 40s?
Why do we think the cats don't like Irina?
I like to think of it as she's a predator and all of the animals can sense it. Like, she's at the top of the food chain.
Yeah, I mean, she's a big cat. Those are little kittens. I mean, the monkeys would be, they would be prey in the jungle, and the birds, absolutely. So I think that's what we see is monkeys, cats, and birds for the most part. Yeah.
But then the panther in the zoo is like, you're fine.
Well, I think the panther's like, I respect you, don't trust you. Give me a chance. I'll claw your face off in the climax of this movie. So Arena ends up staying outside as we get this sort of like busybody sequence, and then we hear this ominous thing of you can't fool a cat. So the idea that you can trust all of the cats throughout this movie because they will tell it to you straight.
Straight.
All right, so this is where we get a weird time ellipsis. Like, we presume it's the same day, and yet when Oliver awakens on Arena's couch, he basically confesses that he loves her, and she has to defend herself why they haven't been intimate. So at this point, it's just kissing, but he's like, how come we haven't done that?
Well, this is the jarring thing, right? She says, like she never wanted to love him. She stayed away from people. She lived alone. She isolated herself so she wouldn't give in to these temptations to turn her into a cat person. And he's like, no, you silly woman. And then we literally cut to the next scene, and it's their wedding dinner.
Yep. It is abrupt. We have a 73-minute runtime and we have got to move.
I was so confused.
I feel like in a more contemporary text, they would have been like 4 months later or something like that. Like we would have gotten a title card maybe.
Or like a smash cut. We need a smash cut to make it like a joke.
Right.
It's all of Lewton's poetry. It's like you just kind of let it wash over you.
Well, I do kind of love it, though, because it says, you'll figure it out as we proceed through this next scene, which is set in the Serbian restaurant. And yeah, they've now already been married. This is the wedding party that's kind of celebrating the marriage. We very quickly understand what's happening. So it's not as though it's confusing. It's just it takes us that extra beat because we haven't been force-fed the information.
Right.
Yes.
So at this wedding party, there are whispers about Arena's frigidity, and Alice is like on top of it. She's shutting that shit down. No, Arena's a good woman. This is a great fit. They're a good match.
Yep.
Enter a well-dressed woman with feline features who is played by Elizabeth Russell, but voiced by Simone.
Man, this is Miranda Richardson traveling back in time, and she's clearly lived 100 years.
This woman is stunningly gorgeous. I love the fact that she basically gets one line, which translates to sister?
Yeah, my sister.
Yeah, moja sestra.
And then she is out of the movie, but if you read the Criterion notes for the disc, it basically says this is the moment where the movie shifts. Like the power of just this one character in this one sequence with this one line upends the entire film because suddenly you realize there are more than one of them, and Arena's not making this shit up. Like she's not delusional. This is the proof.
Yeah, and I will say, again, not knowing anything about the plot of this movie, I actually thought we were not going to have actual cat creatures in this movie. So I was actually quite surprised that we do get cat creatures in this movie. But yeah, this woman is, again, her, 2 seconds of screen time is such an imposing figure.
I mean, she owned those seconds on screen.
Yes.
Just a weird fun fact. I think she was married to Rosalind Russell's brother. That's
really?
That's why her name's Elizabeth Russell.
Right. Yes, of course.
I mean, and Rosalind's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. That has nothing to do with anything, but
it's your fun fact.
Yeah, exactly.
So after this encounter, this is very much upsets Arena to the point that she literally crosses herself at the table. And then when they go home, she takes a bath, and you can tell she's trying to like wash the sin, wash the association of this woman off of her. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, Oliver's cracking jokes like, oh, we're still talking about cat people, are we? Go to hell, Oliver.
This is actually interesting, right? Because this is their wedding night. And I mean, she basically tells him, she's like, I want to be Mrs. Reed. I want to be everything that he means to me, but I can't. And I'm like, why don't you fucking marry him then? But yeah, they end their wedding night in separate bedrooms.
Yeah. It is rough because part of this, you feel like, well, Arena, why did you do this? But if you understand the societal pressures that we put on people to have marriages, children, have a normal, happy life, and Arena has struggled with this, right? Like she's isolated herself. She's surrounded herself with basically figures foretelling her death. I get that she might have said, you know what, this man loves me. I'm willing to make a go of it. And I've been honest with him. I don't think it excuses her, but I think it's understandable.
Yeah, I think it's just what you said. It's like she is trying to suppress and repress that desire she has. And that's the whole thing. I think of that scene with Elizabeth Russell in the Serbian restaurant as sexually charged, and that's why she has to get home and get those dirty thoughts. Because, like, I mean, that one look, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And the way she slinks out of the restaurant, too. Like, just brilliant.
And so, in a way, then Oliver is her beard.
Yes, it was like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Which I'm just going to keep bringing back Nazimova here.
Go ahead.
She had a lavender marriage that probably Lewton would have
known about.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it was kind of common. I mean, not like, oh, everybody was doing it, but there were a bunch of stars that we have either assumed or, we've seen biographies of. And it's like, yeah, we had a lot of those kinds of marriages because it was a way for people to still do work, but be able to do the things that they needed to do sort of out in the open, because they could always just point to the beard and say, like, no, I've got this guy or I've got this lady.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let's be real. It happens to this day. There are closeted actors who still do lavender marriages.
But lavender marriages, is it specifically a gay man and a lesbian woman, or is it just any queer person with a beard?
I think of the lavender marriages as usually 2 queers coming together to kind of have some safety. I mean, kind of going back to the queerness, like right at the very, very beginning of the film, Irena says, I like the dark, it's friendly. And that's one of those first moments when we think about how queerness has historically lived in the shadows.
Right.
Even all the way thinking about just cruising.
Shadows, there are aplenty in this movie.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's the other funny thing. Like, I look at this movie as something of a tragedy, but you can also very easily look at this movie as a film noir. Like, it is bathed in shadows. And of course, Turner would go on to direct Out of the Past, which is like a classic of the subgenre of film noir.
See, I'm so glad that you said you view this film as a tragedy, and maybe we can wait till the end to get to it, but like, I don't know if the film views itself as a tragedy.
Really?
Yeah, I think it does.
I think her death scene alone, the way it's presented, you have to remove Oliver and Alice out of that because it almost becomes a farce to the point where you're just like, oh my God, heteros, get out of here.
I think that's why, though, we end, I mean, yes, I get that, but we also end with the hetero couple going off to live life, I guess, wherever they're going.
Definitely watch the
Curse
sequel.
The cat
Yep, definitely watch that so you can kind of see what
happy.
Exactly. And I think that there's a whole thing where it's like Irena's the hero of the story. She's like the most nuanced. She has like
right. But I guess what I'm thinking, so hey, in this time period, right, you couldn't have an immoral villain be the hero of the film. And in this film, we have Irena who is stalking and trying to attack Alice. So I just don't think, maybe the film knows it, but I feel like when they were submitting, like, they had to make it be like, well, no, we have to make it to be like Irena's the monster, the villain, because we can't have her be the hero of the film since she's trying to kill the female co-lead of this film, you know?
Well, I guess what we should have done is like actually read some contemporary reviews of seeing if we can find anything in the archives of how people actually reacted. But I think she is the hero of the film, but she must be destroyed. And that's why she is destroyed. And that is what the Hays Code would have demanded. But the Hays Code, like, they're such dum-dums, like cishet white guys. They didn't even realize that this was
she's the hero.
Yeah, they wouldn't have realized she was the hero, and they wouldn't have realized it was queer.
And I think that's the thing. I mean, because again, I also view her as the hero, but I don't know if that's because I live in the year 2022 and I'm watching this like, well, yeah, she's clearly the hero of this film.
Well, I will say this. I don't know where I came across this, but I did come across it somewhere. DeWitt Bodine talked about how they received letters. You know, RKO received letters with people writing in and saying, thank you so much for putting a lesbian on screen. Like, kind of like, how brave of you. Yeah. So DeWitt Bodine is a really interesting character because he became one of the earliest historians of Hollywood and wrote a lot about queer Hollywood. So.
Right.
God, that's amazing. Can you imagine how important that would have been for queer women of this time to go and be like, I see myself wholly in this character?
Yeah, no, it like literally makes me feel verklempt.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it really kind of gets me. Like when I really think about queers through history, it's like I feel it feels heavy. And there's a lot of joy, but there's a lot of heaviness. And it's just thinking about how 1942 feels far away, but really it's not that far away.
Right.
The progress is not quite as far as I would have hoped.
Yeah.
We're talking like 80 years ago here, folks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so in the snow outside, Irena does dance around this Hays Code where she basically says, like, she wants to fuck. Like, she thinks she's ready to fuck, but yeah, when they get inside, as you said, Trace, they do end up spending the wedding night on the opposite side of the door. And it's sad. It's unfortunate. I do love, though, that you can hear the panther growling in the background of all of this.
It's like it's taunting her.
Mm-hmm. It's great. It's such a fantastic little detail. So Irena goes to the zoo to talk to the zookeeper, Alec Craig, and, you know, he gives her this line about how the panther is the worst beast in the Bible. And then he's like, also, happy marriage.
Okay.
You've been married 1 month.
So here's I actually pinged this line he gives her because, yeah, he says, you know, the panther is an evil creature. And she goes, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, the book of Revelation says, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. And then he goes, like a leopard, but not a leopard. I guess this fits this feller. And I'm like, okay, so it's not a leopard. But you were just saying, well, the leopard is evil because the Bible says this thing that is like a leopard is evil, which is not unlike how we just have to put like this evil cross on things we don't understand, like queer people in the Bible.
Yeah. Sorry, that took a moment to kind of like sink in a little bit.
Basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is the book of Revelations is saying that this beast looks like a leopard, and so therefore this man says, well, leopards must be evil, even though the Bible is not saying leopards are evil.
Yeah, so if we extrapolate by that virtue, it's like we've labeled queerness as an evil, but really that's not even in the text, and or that's just something that we've kind of made up and slapped onto people.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a handful. The one line in Leviticus, you know, is like, man shall not lie with man, else blah, 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 blah. But again, it's like the thing where it's like, okay, well, so we're picking this one line of text from the Bible and then assigning like this entire like a group of people and like condemning them for it. And it's like, yeah, but you know, there's a lot of other lines in the Bible about other things that are very, very sinful that we completely ignore.
Yep. We like to cherry pick.
We scare them.
We really do.
We do.
Oh.
It's because we offer, you know, I deeply believe queerness offers a way out of the shit that we live in. The way we've structured societies, there's something deeply embedded into our existence that shows there is another way to be, and it would be a much better way. And that's scary to the system.
Boy, that is really transgressive.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it. There is so much power in that kind of sentiment.
I believe it. I really do. I think I have to. I have to believe that because, I mean, the shit that we have is not working, people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm also in favor of like matrilineal societies because I think, you know, and I'll just not climb on that soapbox. People have heard it before to the point where we've started to get reviews on the podcast where it's like, can Joe stop complaining about white men? It's like,
I'll take that mantle for you today. I'll be the one. I'll be the man-hating lesbian.
Oh, God. It's a heavy cross, Heather.
Yeah. I'll make it a T-square.
There we go. So Irena ends up running home to sketch, and then she's distracted by the canary that we exchanged the kitten for. And I love this. It actually reminded me a little bit of Batman Returns with Michelle Pfeiffer and the canary. But basically, she's cat-like. She plays with this bird, and it is so scared that it dies.
Actually, that has to be an intentional homage on Burton's part, right?
I think so.
I wouldn't be surprised because we know that Tim Burton is pretty media literate.
Well, I mean, just because, you know, Batman Returns is like, it has noirish aspects to it. And like, I guess I wouldn't call this a noir, but like stylistically, it feels very noir.
No, this movie's absolutely noir.
I absolutely think it's a noir.
Oh, okay.
I mean, noir specialists would have some issues, but there's...
Right. Well, they always do.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the lighting alone in the stairwell when Dr. Judd goes back for his cane and like you see all of the shadows and it's definitely noir.
I mean, yeah, exactly. The film is painted with light and it's all about the shadows. So
I guess I'm likening it to people like, taking issue with people calling Suspiria a giallo,
Right. I mean, as always, if you can defend your argument, then you're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, all these labels we make, that what's like, ugh.
I know.
What does it matter?
We're queer. What are labels?
Exactly.
So at this point, Oliver has had just about enough. His blue balls are starting to get to him, so he decides that her belief in the curse is the problem. It's not anything else. It's just that he's got to cure her of these irrational ideas. So he elects for, I'm using air quotes here, an intelligent solution. So he's inadvertently saying, oh, well, she's a dum-dum for believing in this stuff.
It's so funny because at first I was like, oh, good. Like, she's going to go talk to someone about this. And then I was like, oh, wait, but it's the 40s.
I mean, she's lucky she doesn't get institutionalized earlier. It's just floated as an idea later in the movie.
But it's only because he wants to keep her around so we can fuck her.
Oh, boy. I didn't even think about that, and that is so grim.
Yes, he sucks.
Yeah.
So the man in question who sucks is, of course, Dr. Judd. He is no better in this movie than he was in The Seventh Victim.
Yeah, no.
I love him, though. He's a scoundrel. Like, he's kind of rootable in that way. I prefer him in The Seventh Victim because he's almost amusing, whereas here it feels like a prototype where they're playing with the idea of, well, I don't think this movie thinks that he's a bad therapist, but we would absolutely recognize him as that.
I love whenever she's like, they go through their session. She's like, what do I tell Oliver? He's like, well, what does one tell a husband? One tells him nothing.
He's already grooming her.
Yeah. He's like, tell me all your secrets.
Which she does. So we see that he puts her under hypnosis and she apparently tells him the whole thing. And that's how we sort of get the back half of this curse. So that's why she's so hesitant about sex and sexuality, because she really just doesn't want to kill anyone.
And that like little dream sequence is adorable.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we've got some animated cats in there.
Yeah, a little swirl. Yeah.
I do love the way her face is lit, though, in the hypnosis sequence, because it's like just like a pitch black all around her, except just the light on her face. And it's so striking.
It's so gorgeous. It's one of the reasons I love black and white, and it seems dead obvious, but just the blacks in black and white films, especially ones that are leaning into noir, are so inky, and it looks like you could just kind of fall into them. So when we're talking about things like therapy and hypnosis, it's like, it's so visually spot on for what we're trying to connote.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, I pulled this from the Criterion Blue, so this is not my personal observation, but like a lot of the lighting, the lights are on the ground as opposed to on the ceiling. So when we walk into a room and we're used to like the top half of the room being bright and like we get darker as we go down to the floor, this is the opposite. So the lighting here is already disorienting us.
Yeah. I feel like you can really, really see that in some of the later scenes as the shit starts to hit the fan.
Yes, specifically a lot of the panther stalking sequences.
Yeah. Which is funny because it's also like a strategic way for them to hide
the panther
when the panther is not on screen. So Irena goes home, and I have to feel like every woman in the audience watching this who has ever had to deal with a man just hisses at the screen, because we discover that Oliver has been confiding in Alice, and it was her who recommended Dr. Judd.
Yeah. I mean, look, on a level, like, all he should have done was tell her that Alice suggested the psychiatrist from the get-go. Right? Like, if you're like, hey, she knows people, like, I'm going to get this recommendation from her. Unfortunately, that means I have to tell her your secret. Talk about it. But these people aren't talking to each other. I'm sorry. Oliver and Alice are talking to each other. No one is talking to Irena.
No. Which just serves to isolate. And I mean, I'm surprised that she doesn't become paranoid in the course of this film. Like, if anything, she becomes that wrathful queer vengeance, right? And it's in some ways very satisfying. I just hate that she takes it out on Alice and not Oliver.
Yes.
But I mean, I think that's also a product of the 40s too.
Yeah, I don't think that she probably could have with the Hays Code.
Mm-hmm.
Although, I don't know.
Well,
I mean, no, because all the film noir, maybe if it was more film noir, she would have.
I mean, we were going to kill her anyway, so we could probably do whatever we wanted until the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but I think the problem is that you would lose that sexual charge between the two women and the obsession with a woman.
Right.
So.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's very much, I'm going to go after the other woman. Like in my notes, I literally would capitalize other woman. But if you're reading this as, Arena's trying not to act on her repressed queer sexuality, and yet she keeps following Alice into the pool and into dark spaces.
Exactly.
So, because again, like this is a film, like, about intimacy and everything. So this is from Jeffrey O'Brien's Darkness Betrayed article that's actually included with the Criterion Blue. But he says, rarely had a Hollywood film of any genre so elliptically yet vividly expressed a fundamental inability to connect, a wounding sexual grief manifested in moods of frustration, mistrust, irritation, appeasement, yearning, hapless fascination, and unbreachable depression. Oh my God. So my dog gagged when I... It is an intimate story about the terrors of intimacy. No mere otherworldly horror could match the shot of Oliver turning away in sheer incapacity, lighting a cigarette while Arena is attempting to convey the depth of her anguish. He is the very embodiment of that normal American lie that haunts cat people like a specter, and that from Arena's perspective is as much a torment and a destructive force as her own ancestral curse.
That's actually an interesting point because we haven't really discussed the otherness part of this. Like we talked about the queerness in Arena, but I mean, I was intrigued to note that in the reviews from the 40s, people singled her out as a bad actress, or they found her dialect incomprehensible. Like, her accent work is really hard. She obviously doesn't speak fluent English. And I think that it is absolutely integral to this movie.
Yeah.
And B, I find it like this interesting mix between the coquettish kind of foreigner that we like to exoticize, but also it serves to isolate her further. The fact that even verbally, she can't always communicate in a way that these dumb Americans understand her.
Well, and I think that makes Oliver more despicable because even though we don't get any confirmation seemingly of ill intent from in the beginning, but it almost seems like he's like, hey, look, here's this foreign lady who has no one else to help her out. I can make her mine.
It's predatory.
Yeah, I mean, he has that whole section where he says he's drawn to her, and when she's in a room, he just has to touch her. Absolutely predatory.
Gross.
And there is, there is a... Yeah, fucking Oliver.
He sucks.
He totally sucks.
I mean, the funny thing is that I think the movie does a fantastic job of making you think that he's actually okay, and then peeling it back over the course of the runtime to say, no, he's actually kind of terrible.
I mean, okay, look, I'm sorry. I have to read this quote that he says. And I know I said at the beginning, but literally, so he's talking to Alice, and he just goes, matter-of-factly, it's a funny thing. I've never been unhappy before. Things have always gone swell for me. I had a grand time as a kid, lots of fun at school, with you at the office and Commodore. That's why I don't know what to do about all this.
I mean, really, that is we should take that. That is the epitome of cis-het white privilege.
Yes. It reminded me of this really super funny line from Clone High. So one of the characters is JFK. All of the characters are clones, but they're teenage clones of their famous selves. And at one point, JFK just breaks down crying and he goes, I'm a Kennedy. I'm not accustomed to tragedy.
Joe, you really should start watching The Great on Hulu because that is Nicholas Holt's character to a T.
I love these people who are confronted with conflict or challenge for the first time, and they are just completely at a loss. And the rest of us are over here smoking a cigarette, looking at them and saying, bitch, that is my entire fucking life.
I've never been every person with depression is fuck you, dude.
Exactly.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, and it's such a counterpoint, that line's such a counterpoint in a film that does have that kind of melancholy weight to it.
Yeah. Arena's over here literally clawing the furniture and talking about how she feels more comfortable in the darkness. And he's like, I just don't know if I ever loved her. Oh. Okay, Oliver, that's great for you. Okay, so Arena ends up spending the night wandering around. She goes to the zoo. She comes back. He's very apologetic. And then, yes, this is where he talks about how he's never experienced a challenge before. And this upsets Alice so much, she starts crying and she confesses her love for him. And then he goes, oh, that's so great. Gosh, I don't even know if I love Irina anymore. And you're just like, oh my God, dude. Like, this other woman just confessed she loves you, and he's so deluded.
This is the line, though, because he says, he's like, oh, I don't really know her. I guess in a way we're strangers. And Alice's reply to this is, well, we'll never be strangers. And it's like, girl, you already said you loved him. Back off.
Yeah, this, I think, is the moment, like, it's one step too far. You know what? You said your piece, but also now it seems like you're active. Like, I think she even says, like, we should run away and just be happy together. And you're like, girl, he's saying he's got a few problems in his marriage. But back off.
But you know what, though? Because he doesn't immediately say, yeah, let's do that and run off with her. She's like, all right, well, fuck you too, then.
Well, think about the fact that also he has been confiding all of the problems to her.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So at this point in time, she's probably already also thinking that, Irina is abnormal and there is something wrong and she doesn't fit and she's the abnormal one, whereas Alice is like, well, bitch, here I am. I'm the normal one. We could go live this cishet happy life.
Right.
Again, everyone go watch Curse of the Cat People.
I love the tease, Heather. I love it. Okay, so Dr. Judd tracks down Irina at the zoo because she hasn't come back for a second session because she was like, I tried it once, no thanks, I'm done.
Does he have no other patients that he can be talking to? He has to go find this woman at the zoo?
I mean, if you want to be super cynical, you could say, well, he's in the habit of tracking down the ones he finds attractive.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
So she ends up impressing him by knowing the difference between her soul and her mind. She's actually very eloquent in this scene. So part of me is like, hey, critics, why don't you shut the fuck up?
That is what I was going to say, actually. Her accent is fine.
It's fine.
I can clearly understand everything she says. I don't know. I really like, she has this, this naivete to her, but I don't even know if we get a full arc for her from beginning to end. But like, there are like just little shades of agency that are added to her as the film goes on that I like.
I mean, I think that there's a lot of agency ultimately in the sense that at the base level of the film, neither Oliver or Dr. Judd get to control her. She's responsible for her own destiny, but of course it
leads to tragedy.
Yeah, it's tragic, but she's responsible.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, and I think that's the way we have to look at it as a happy text in a way. It's like, even though we're left with yet another queer character who has to die at the end of this film, at least she goes out by her own hand. Like, I could see a different version of this film ending with her ending up in a mental institution.
Yeah, or as a leopard in a fucking cage. Sorry.
No pointing fingers. No pointing fingers.
Yeah. But I will say there's a line earlier on where she talks, this is like really early in their relationship. She says that, she wants to have a normal, happy life. She's like, she's talking about how she's jealous of all the women she sees.
Yeah.
And she desires to be normal and free. And there is something like, this is the sad part of like, queerness at that time. She knew she would never be, air quote, normal.
Right.
But she chose her way to be free.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, she gives it the good old fashioned try because she feels like she has to. And all she's left is wanting because normalcy is a fucking lie. Who she is normal. It's just that in 1942, she can't be that person.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So we get another fight between the married couple, and Oliver decides he's going to head out to the office, even though it's clearly the middle of the night. But when he ends up running into a woman who's cleaning the entryway, he pauses and decides that he's going to go for coffee and apple fucking pie. Just that alone, I'm like, oh my God, he's the quintessential all-American boy.
Yes.
I mean, this is during World War II, so I'm sure they're like, patriotism, patriotism, patriotism.
Right.
I know, but think about when everyone gets served their pie later. It's like, she got Bavarian cream. I forget what Dr. Asshole gets, but again, he gets apple pie. I think it is.
Oh, it's a condemnation.
Yeah. He called himself an Americano at one point, too. Like, whatever he's, you know.
It's like Bavarian cream, so ethnic.
Yeah.
Basically, even here she doesn't fit in. Why can't she just order normal shit? I mean, we see two food establishments in this film, and one is the Serbian restaurant that they go to after they get married. And this is where it's like, oh, well, she's frigid. She's weird. Look at that cat lady. She's sexy. And here it's like, well, if you go to the All-American Diner, you can get an apple pie and you can just spend the whole night gabbing with your best gal. I'm sorry. I'm so sassy tonight. I don't know why.
I am loving this. It's like one of those. Yeah, keep going, please keep going.
So we get this heartbreaking moment because we implicitly understand what's going on when Irina calls the office, but of course, because he's off getting his fucking pie, she ends up hearing Alice instead, and she default assumes there's something more going on. And when she walks to the office, she sees them in the diner, and they are having a gay old time. But not the right kind of gay old time.
Yeah, the worst kind of gay old time.
Yeah.
The straight old time.
The straight old time.
And instead of walking in to confront them, she decides to slink back and stalk.
Yes. Okay, so I would argue, and Heather, I'm interested to know if you would agree with me. Everyone talks about the pool scene in this movie, and for my money, I do love the pool scene, but this sidewalk, quote-unquote, chase scene is the height of perfection in this movie. Like, this is what I always remember about this movie.
Yes, especially because it's like the punctuation point is that the Lewton bus, as they call it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, the whole scene is brilliantly constructed to the point. We've already established that Alice is Queen Bitch of the Hats, and it's the only hat she wears that has the feathers in it during the stalking scene. Like, those kinds of little touches, you're just like, mwah, mwah, those are my chef's kiss.
Yeah, we've already seen one canary go, Alice, could you be next?
Exactly.
Well, this is actually one where I would love to see this scene specifically in a theater, because the light is so important to this scene.
So good.
I mean, we have her feet, like the heels on the floor, boom, 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 boom. But it's like we're also going in and out of darkness into lightness, into darkness, into lightness so much. And it's like, it does build up tension really, really, really well. And again, yeah, punctuating it with that bus scare is just,
so
love
good.
it.
And I love, too, that this anticipates the seventh victim, because we get that similar, not quite chase scene down the alley, right? With Jacqueline. So it's like Lewton figured out, oh my God, this is so effective. I should use this again in another movie.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, do we hear a cat growling before the bus shows up? So it's like the cat growl kind of morphs into the sound of the bus?
Yes.
Yes,
okay.
Because we see the tree shaking behind Alice as she's like walking along.
God, yeah. See, that was, I mean, I thought all that morphing of the sound was my favorite part of this. Like, so creative. I love it.
I mean, the sound design in this film is like aces, because they didn't have the budget for all of the showy visuals, but it's so brilliant. And I bet you if we like took the time, I mean, you guys watch a zillion films, like I'm sure that we can trace like the whole, how sound design and horror probably shifted after these films with Lewton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, I mean, I think you are, again, if this is not the first jump scare in horror, like it is the most notable one this early on. Like, I think you could argue that maybe like a silent film like Nosferatu has a jump scare, but it's not from sound, it's from like imagery.
And think of how much we rely on, we being the
audience.
Like just think of how many films these days, horror films, completely rely on auditory jump scares.
Right?
Yeah. In Nosferatu, it's a jump scare where it's like, it's a jump cut. So it's instead of the jump cut is the jump scare in Nosferatu.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to me, this is like the precursor to all modern day examples where we get that music sting, right? Like when the cat jumps out of the closet and scares our protagonist. Like that's literally what this bus is with the screech of the brakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they even called this, I remember this in film school because we actually had to study it. It was like, it's called the Lewton bus or the cat scare.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was how I was introduced to the concept, too.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. The term cat scare comes from this movie?
Yeah.
This sequence.
I literally thought cat scare was just like, oh, a cat jumps through a window like in Friday the 13th Part 2. Like, that's your bad jump scare with a cat.
That's what it becomes. But this is where it starts.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't even think about that.
I think this film has a profound influence on a lot of horror films that we love. Like I'm just going to make up shit now. But I totally think that we haven't talked about the office cat, John Paul Jones, but I totally think that that's Jonesy. I mean, Jonesy's named after John Paul Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got Alien, we got Batman Returns, we got Friday the 13th Part 2.
I mean, basically the shift in horror film where you had the explicit monsters to suggestive horror with psychological interiority, like that's because of this.
Yeah.
I know I keep harping on it, but I love that so much of this was in response to the fact that we didn't have the money. So we had to get fucking creative.
Yeah. I mean, I've written about this before. A lot of times I have a really deep soft spot for first films of a lot of filmmakers because they didn't have all the money. And then when you get these people who have talent and then they all have all this money thrown at them, it's like they lose a lot of their creativity because they're not thinking outside the box.
Yeah, it inspires laziness.
Yes.
No, you're 100% correct. I mean, I was just talking about this with Joe with like Terrifier 2, you know, a movie made for $250,000 that has amazing, incredible practical gore effects. And then you see these, like, let's say $5 million budgeted Blumhouse movies, and it's like, there's no effort in anything.
Well, I think it's also, I don't want to say laziness because none of us have made movies and it is a huge undertaking. But I do think people end up getting co-opted into regimented systems of normalcy. Like, oh, well, we wouldn't do it that way because now you're part of a system. We've got a department that'll do that. We've got FX houses that we just like send the work over to and so on. So I think people end up, they don't have to be creative because they just get told, oh, do it the way that everybody else does it, which is sad, right?
I think it's also like having money. It maybe, like, that's not laziness, but it inspires the use of shortcuts.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, Joe, the way you just kind of said it was a very kind way of saying something. It's
the two of you are like, let's just call a spade, shall we?
No, I think you're right. I think it becomes institutionalized. And as people get more fame and money, I used to joke that I wanted to start a company that says, I'll say no. And I wanted to give people who have power and money my number and tell me your idea. I will be honest. If I think it's a good idea, I'll say it. But if you come to me and you're going to be like, I'm going to make Halloween Ends, I'll say no.
Heather, I would like to hire David Gordon Green for a future project. What do you think about this?
I'll say no.
I'll say no. Exactly. I'm so upset that he has The Exorcist now.
Oh my God. It's...
No, yeah.
You know what? You could have Halloween, but keep your fucking hands off of it.
Exactly. I'm very upset. So it is one of those things that I think you're right. It's about the institutionalization of stuff, but it's also about the replication of power. And I think these guys actually think that they are being clever and creative at times when they're not. And I think there's something... For a lot of filmmakers, before they make it, they're just creative souls trying to do their art.
Right.
Maybe I'm giving them a little bit too much. Maybe I'm making that a little too poetic in my head, but I do think there's something there. I don't know what we're even talking about anymore.
No, I mean, to even bring it back to this film, I mean, like...
cat people.
Immediately after this, so we get the zookeeper or the groundskeeper finding some dead sheep and whatever, but it's such a simple... I guess I'm going to call it an effect, but how we see the paw prints of the panther turn into high-heeled shoe prints.
Yeah. Again, chef's kiss.
I can't, truly, I cannot think of any time where I've seen high-heeled shoe prints.
Yeah. I mean, what does Bryce Dallas Howard leave in that Jurassic Kingdom movie?
I just mean you normally just see footprints. So I love the detail where it's like, no, we have to show it's a woman. So you get like the front of the foot and then like that little fucking heel. It's so good. And it's also really creepy.
Yeah, it's incredibly effective.
Yeah, it's so unsettling and unnatural, right? So Irina goes home and she cries in the bath. She has nightmares of these animated cats and she hears Dr. Judd's words about the psychic need for death.
Dr. Judd dressed up as as a King John.
King John, yeah.
Yeah.
Very weird.
It's very weird. But just a touch of surreal into the film. And in the morning, it's enough to drive her back to the zoo. And this is where she steals the key for the panther cage.
motions are in place. Wait,
Yeah.
no, the pieces are in place.
The pieces are in place, and then she's, but she hasn't given up. Like, she's still actively engaged in her marriage. She's trying to put on appearances. So she goes to this museum, and Alice and Oliver basically say, hey, we might as well be fucking and or dating right now, so this must be boring for you. Why don't you just go away?
Go wait in the lobby. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
It's so bizarre. I'm just like, I don't understand how you don't think you're sending this woman into an emotional tailspin.
Well, because he doesn't care about her anymore.
He only cares about his needs.
Oh boy. So at this point, Arena's pretty fed up, and she takes it out on Alice by following her to the pool. And we get the other infamous sequence in this film as Alice gets to tread water while she is threatened by growling shadows.
I watched this scene several times because
it's a fucking banger. That's
well, because there's one shot where it's like, I feel like, because I want to see, I'm like, I feel like I can see a panther in there. I feel like I can see it. It's like I see the shape of a panther, but I can't tell. It's so effective at like making you think you're seeing something when you're actually not.
Yeah. I guarantee you they did not have a panther on set for this.
There was no panther.
But I'm the exact same way as you, Trace. I hear it and I just start squinting. I think I even crept closer to the TV because I could have sworn I saw the outline. It's so fantastically effective.
Yeah. And well, and again, I love it. It's like, she jumps for Alice. She jumps in this pool because it's like, oh my God, someone's coming after me. Where's the safest place for me? The middle of the pool.
Well, I think, because cats don't like water. And at this point in time, yeah.
I mean, sorry. That wasn't meant to be like making fun of her. Like, literally, it is correct. Because if someone, be it a person or a cat or whatever, that is the safest place for her. Because at least she has a full view and she has a chance to, like, I guess, swim in the other direction if it jumps in after her.
Yeah, but I'm actually glad that you said it, and it maybe could have been misinterpreted, because I guarantee you that somebody was like, well, what a dumb bitch, why'd she hop in the pool? And it's like,
no.
Yes, exactly what you said, Heather, because cats are afraid of water, but also what you said, Trace, it gives her this vantage point, but it also is just so good visually at isolating Alice, right? Like, danger could be coming at her from any direction because she is so exposed and vulnerable.
But you know what I think would make this scene even better is if her titties were out.
Oh my God. I cannot. And it's also it's Annette O'Toole. Like, Superman 3's. This is Clark Kent's mother.
To clarify, everyone, if you have not seen the remake of this movie, so we have Annette O'Toole undressing in the locker room, and I was like, oh, hey, cool, we're just going to have her put her swimsuit on, she's going to go to this pool. No. We focus on just her topless self in this locker room before she's like, oops, I got to run to the pool, and then she's topless for the rest of the pool.
It just,
Yep.
It feels so egregious. Like, it doesn't feel like it's informed by the character at all. It's just like, it's the 80s, tits out.
I mean, you could argue it's like, oh my God, she's so scared. She doesn't take the time to put her top on to jump before she jumps in this pool, but it doesn't play that way.
It doesn't play that way.
No.
And it's like, I don't know which one of you just said it, but it was just like, for that character, like, Annette O'Toole is the best part. I mean, Natasha Kinski is like a wonderful for me to look at, but Annette O'Toole's character is like, she's so
likable.
Yeah, charming. She's like a effervescence and a charm and a like ease to her.
Well, and she does interact more with Kinski in that movie than Alice and Irina do in the original film too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the deflating of the sexual tension you were talking about earlier as well.
Yes.
Which is weird, right? Like, you would think more interactions would have meant more opportunities to lean into it.
Yeah, well, it's the 80s. But I do love when Alice finally screams in this pool, and we just cut to the women in the lobby who like crane their heads like, what's going on in there?
Oh, Alice. She's having a conniption fit in the pool again. I do love that, just in case you weren't really sure, like, oh, wait, for a moment we doubt Alice and think that maybe she's having a bit of a fit, but it's all in her mind. We get this confirmation with the robe that comes out, and it has just been slashed to ribbons.
So I guess my only question is, and maybe this is a bad logic question, but like, who did Irina fuck or kiss or whatever to turn into a cat? Or was it just her,
it's just
her
thoughts.
rage?
Yeah, it's her passions.
Mhm.
Okay, so she doesn't have to. I mean, it's basically the thing where like if she fucks someone, she definitely will turn into a cat.
Yes.
But if she wills it enough, she can also do it by choice.
Yes, because she's like, she has to be, it's like she's spending all her time suppressing her, wild, dark instincts. So
Right.
when she lets go of that repression, she transforms.
Right.
Imagine that. She also seems more in control. She's powerful. She's confident. Imagine.
Well, it's interesting contrasting these two scenes with Alice, where there is a control of a kind, because you get the impression that Irina is so upset with what Alice is doing to her, whether you want to read that as her straight marriage or her sexual urges. You pick. But like, she seems to be able to control, like, I'm going to go after you. Maybe she doesn't know what she's doing when she's in animal form, but the impetus to change is there. Whereas what we see with Dr. Judd, when he forces himself on her later, that to me seems uncontrolled and wild.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I have a terrible reading that you're both going to appreciate when we get there. Okay. So I'm building it up too much. Lower your expectations. Okay. So Alice relates these events to Dr. Judd because she is now 100% on this is not an irrational fear that Irina has. She tried to attack me as a panther. And of course, Dr. Judd is like, you're stupid. Don't be such a woman.
Yes, he has like an inability to believe any woman in his life.
Correct. Yeah. Because Alice is like, hey, you're part of the problem. Like, she's going to potentially come after you as well. And he's like, I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. Which I love.
Yeah, his death is supremely satisfying.
It's so true. Yeah. So we get a follow-up scene between him and Irina when she finally acquiesces to come back for another session. And he, like, this is so fucking unprofessional of him. He accuses her of being clever and trying to dupe him. And he starts to talk about how hallucinations are symptoms of insanity, and basically saying, like, he more or less says, just get rid of the cat shit and live your life. You're fine.
Okay, but then this is all punctuated where she's like, oh my God, but what if I kiss my husband? He's like, well, what if I kiss you? And it's just, and he's like on her fucking face. And I'm just like, dude, you are so unprofessional.
Yeah, it's wild. It's really wild. Like, this scene, I think if you've ever had difficulties with your mental health and like not being taken seriously, this could potentially be very triggering because this dude is just so awful to her.
Yeah. And it's only getting worse.
Yeah. Things to look forward to. So Irina goes home to Oliver and she's like, you know what? I've listened to Dr. Judd. I'm finally going to take his advice. And I'm basically DTF. And he says,
I love Alice.
He's like, I think he even literally says it's too late.
Yeah.
So she's now saying she's going to give you what you've been wanting this entire fucking movie. And you're in love with the woman with the hat. Got it.
But we get this great shot when she claws the couch, though.
So I forgot about this scene, and I may have cackled with delight. Because
it's so good.
I don't really know how they did the effect, and I think it looks great. Yeah, so we go to the diner, and this is basically people plotting about a woman's future without her consent or her, like, she's not even there.
Yeah, clearly pre-HIPAA. I'm like, are you talking about your patient's mental health?
Yes. Also, so he's like, well, I think the best course of action is for you to get the marriage annulled since you haven't fucked, because the law says you can't divorce an insane person. What?
Whoa. Yeah, so one final opportunity for Oliver to not be a huge piece of shit. He does decide that he is going to look after Irina. He will not have her committed. So,
oh, such a good person.
I mean, low benchmarks. But when they sort of set this trap for Irina, she doesn't show up. So this is when Alice happily tells Oliver, oh, well, we should get back to work anyway, because we're like super behind on things.
Sure.
And Dr. Judd goes back for his cane, which I can't remember if we learn here that it has a knife in it or if we just learn that later.
Oh, that makes sense. Because I was trying to figure out what the significance of this was, of him going back to get this cane.
Well, the significance was he put the cane in there so he can get back in the house and then unlock the door so he could get back into the house again.
Yeah. He's actively plotting.
Yeah, he's
Got
like
it.
full on plotting. And then, yeah, we do know there's a sword in there at that point because he showed it to Alice, right?
I think so. Yeah. Oh, yes. When she warns him and he's like, it's fine.
I've got protection.
Yeah, he's going to use his phallus.
Yeah. Always. I mean, one way or another, he wants to use it.
Exactly. And it's like they had that like little Wolfman shade in there about the silver bullet.
Yeah. Well, I guess, yeah, because the cane is a very prominent prop in the Wolfman, so I guess that makes sense.
I just love it. It's a little fuck you to the competitor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, really, this film, it's like it was made because of the Wolfman, right? So it's like you take the Wolfman, you take the female gothic, marry them together, give it a lower budget so it's suggestive instead of explicit, and you got cat people.
There you go.
This movie should not work, by all accounts, according to that.
Well, I mean, I know we talked about the bus scene, we talked about the pool scene, the stalking scene, but like, I really do like this office scene. I think it's done really well.
Yeah.
If you didn't really pay attention to the lighting, I feel like this is the scene that will make it the most apparent for you. So their drafting tables are just these pools of bright light, and then all of the room is like shrouded in darkness. But you can see that the lights are from the floor level and they disappear towards the ceiling, and it's very evocative. We get this fantastic, it's not quite a long take, but there's no editing and no camera movement as Alice goes to answer the phone. And so we get like a nice deep focus, and it's showy in a way that they didn't need to make it this way. They could have shot this much more easily. And yet I think this is just kind of a bit of a flair.
Well, the sets also, so this is from Bailey, the cinematographer of Schrader's Remake, but he talks about how, in a lot of this movie, you don't have a lot of, there's not a lot of set dressing on the walls, because if you don't have anything on the walls, then the wall becomes a screen or a canvas for the shadow, for the lighting, and then the lighting and the shadows become your set dressing. Whereas in this scene, we have a lot of geometric shapes on the walls adding to the light, and it's just an interesting stylistic choice for this particular scene.
Yeah, I really appreciated that comment because I hadn't really thought about how you could use a blank wall as a canvas in that way. And when this movie does play so much with light and shadow, you realize, oh, it's another way to project meaning onto the frame.
Yep.
And in case that really didn't come clear to you, how about we pull a ruler off the wall when we think that there's a panther locked in the room with us, and it takes the form of a fucking cross.
Yeah, I mean, like the best use of a T-square in cinema.
Right?
Yeah.
I actually had to rewind because I was like, where did he get a giant cross from? There's a bunch of them hanging on the wall because we've got all these numbers, like they're drafting using the walls. So it's like, hey, we didn't just arbitrarily pick a job for Oliver. Like, we're incorporating it into the action of the film.
Yeah, isn't that so good?
It's so good.
So good.
And it's so simple, right?
I love hearing you like get giggly when you start talking about it.
I know, it's just so good. I was like, they fucking made them draftspeople so they could have this fucking T-square moment.
Yeah, it's like, let's work backwards so that we can get to this moment and have it pay off without feeling like, wait, where did that come from? How did this work?
Yeah.
So this moment is all great. We actually do get to see some panther action in here. And yeah, it does feel like maybe it could have been inserted after the fact just to up the tension. But what panther we do see is very effective. And then we bust out of this room. We go down to the lobby. We can smell Irina's perfume, which I love that touch. And I love that it's Alice who takes notice of it. And Oliver's completely oblivious.
He's like, what perfume?
My wife has a perfume? So this is when Alice realizes that Dr. Judd is likely in danger. So she tries to call him, but he's already putting the moves on Irina, who has shown up. And so the hot take that I mentioned was I saw more than one reading from people who say that Irina submits to this kiss willingly.
Does that change your view of the movie if she does? I'm personally like, fine, fucking kill him.
So the reason I don't like it is because I believe that he forces himself on her and she doesn't she doesn't give anything back to this. Like, that's the reason to me why she ends up turning into a panther, is because she wasn't ready for this. She didn't want it. And then she exacts her revenge. The alternative, if she does give into this or she brings it upon herself, is maybe more in line with the fatalistic bent of the film. So this is the start of her suicidal ideation, where she says, okay, well, I'm going to submit to this heterosexual, like, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to kiss men. And that prompts her to then change and decide, okay, I can't live this life. But
I don't think so. I
don't think so.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, that shot is actually a beautiful shot where he imposes himself.
Right.
Maybe there's a moment where she's like, I'm not going to fight in this exact moment because I'm going to give a whole lot of fight.
Yeah.
This fucking piece of shit does this thing to me.
Right.
But her face does not change. And then the way the camera and the lighting shift and she kind of goes into darkness and the like eyes kind of light up, like, oh, so good.
So good.
So I do not think that that was not a consensual kiss.
No.
Yeah, I guess when I was referring to it as more so like a consensual in the sense like she doesn't want to do it, but it happens because she knows she's going to turn into a cat and kill him. So she's like, yeah, I'll give into this because I want to turn into a cat and kill this person.
She's already plotting, okay, well, if you do this, then I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, she already told him, like, whatever the fuck he said, like, I want to kiss you, or what happens if I kiss you? And she's like, I would not like that. Like, she had already told him no more than once, I think. So
Right.
I'm like, I think it was like, well, yeah, I think we're overthinking it in a really weird way.
I guess because I was like, wait, is it a problem that she's like choosing to kill this person? I guess I thought that was what the big issue was, not the fact that she's consenting to it because she quote unquote wanted it, you know?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Yeah. Honestly, my big thing is that when they're looking at the body, I really want her to walk in and just be like, to Oliver and Alice, be like, well, it couldn't have been me. After all, I'm not a cat, am I?
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you fuckers. Yeah, so she definitely murders him in cat form, and it's very satisfying. And then Alice and Oliver arrive as his dead body is being discovered, and they're kind of not surprised or upset by this. I think at this point, Alice has convinced Oliver, and they've now gone through this traumatic experience at the drafting business office place. But it's just weird to me that they're not like, holy shit, people could die if we piss Irina off. Like, they don't seem that concerned.
I guess he knows what happiness is now.
Burp. So we follow Irina through the fog as she returns to the Central Park Zoo. She releases the panther, and I could see people being slightly underwhelmed because we are dealing with a real animal. So it's shot in such a way that you understand that the panther has not quite attacked her, but it has wounded her fatally as it jumps by her. But it's very quick.
Yeah.
And she had already been, she
had already been stabbed by Dr.
She'd
Judd.
already been stabbed. Yeah, exactly. And like had half of the sword in her still.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, because of course we've got to make sure that we remember that foreshadowy statue as part of the story.
Yeah, and the first image she drew when she threw it on the ground, and plus, his phallus killing her.
Ugh.
Getting Freudian on this shit.
His straight phallus killed her.
His straight phallus, yeah.
Yep.
And that like, I love the way that they positioned and lit the body because it actually has an incredibly panther-like look to it.
Yeah. Because we also have a dead panther because the escaped cat has been hit and killed by a car. So it's like, there is no freedom for these cats in whichever form they take.
Exactly. Again, tragic.
Yeah.
This is, I think, where the tragedy comes in. Whether or not you want to believe the whole film lives up to this, I can't deny the power of this moment where you're just like, oh, this woman was cut down by society.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, of course, Alice and Oliver arrive because all they do is play catch up in this last 10 or so minutes. It's like they just wander around going, oh, well, I guess now we can be happy. Don't know why I affected an accent for that, but we're moving on. So this is when Oliver says, oh, I guess Irina never lied to us. And this is where you can just eat shit, Oliver.
Yeah, fuck off, dude.
Yeah.
Which he does. He fucks right off and walks off the frame.
He really does, presumably into the next marriage, because now he doesn't have to take care of Irina or annul the marriage because she's dead, so he can just move on to the blonde wife.
Exactly, with the good hats.
I mean, we've talked a little bit about the otherness, but I do think it's interesting that we've got a bit of a Betty and Veronica situation, and it's very much like get rid of the exotic dark-haired foreigner so that we can marry the all-American blonde.
Yeah. I mean, especially as like this is a film that as World War II is escalating for the U.S. and I mean, I'm like giving it an excuse for 42. We're still incredibly racist and xenophobic. So it's just like,
what are you talking about? No, we're not.
Yeah,
we're good.
It's rough.
Yeah, so they walk away into presumably a happy ending. See previous comments about the sequel. But we end with this a holy sonnet from John Donne. But black sin hath betrayed to endless night my world, both parts, which to me is the important part, both parts, the lesbian and the panther, both parts must die.
Must die, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Capable.
Woo!
I mean, even like, did you like look at there's a poster. I had a friend that used to have a poster and like the what do you call fucking poster lines?
Like a tagline?
Yeah, tagline. It was like, the tagline on this poster was, she was marked with the curse of those who slink and court and kill by night. And I'm like, just take the word kill, make it slay, and it's literally gay people.
Right. It's an anthem, even.
Exactly.
Well, the Hays Code said no to that.
Ugh, the Hays Code. But I will say, I feel like I'm going to put on my geriatric glasses or something right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because queerness was already existing in the shadows and we've been relegated historically so long to different kinds of lives that were not at our fullest capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that the subtextual films, I find a deep resonance with them.
Right.
Because they have a match, they feel like an embodied match to, and that, like, to interrupt myself, it doesn't mean that I don't love explicit queer horror films, because I do, but there is something I have a really deep appreciation for subtextual queerness, because you can watch films with straight people and you're like, how do you not see this?
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like it's more ours.
I think it makes it like a puzzle. It makes the viewing experience more interesting when it's implicit, because it's almost like you're peeling back layers of an onion. You're trying to solve a puzzle. And I get that for some people, they don't like that because they don't want to, I don't want to say they don't want to think during the movie, but like don't want to do that extra work, right? They like the explicit. And it's just kind of, I don't know. It's a more involved viewing experience if you're looking for implicit subtext.
Well, I think even to build on what Heather's suggesting, there's a whole audience of people who can watch a movie and not even know that they need to be looking for that, right? Like, you're taking it at face value on the surface. And for queers, we're just seeing this other layer that is just naturally occurring because it's reflecting our lived experiences. Like, it isn't more work for us because we're seeing ourselves in this. But I don't know. I definitely appreciate what you're saying, Heather, because I do feel like there's something more gratifying about these kinds of stories where it is just percolating underneath the surface. And there's something powerful about seeing ourselves thriving and like fully out on the screen. And yet, I don't know. Yeah, this feels more true to the queer experience in some ways, some horrible, horrible experiences.
Yeah, I think one is the explicit side of it is seeing the representation, which is incredibly important. And I hope that, behind the scenes, more varied humans get the ability to make films to put specific representations on. Like, that's all important. But there's something about that embodied aspect that connects with the subtextual, the liminality of queerness and the subtextual layering of these narratives. There's just something that it's not that I don't want to say I miss it because I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be like, I want to go back to when persecution was even worse. Yeah, exactly.
I want to go back to when queers had to hide who they were and they had to sneak shit into the movies they had what they wanted to do.
I mean, let's just be real. Across the planet, queers are, I mean, legislatively in the United States, like, yeah, it's like we have made incredible strides. We have very, very far to go. And there's countries where you can be killed for being queer still. So
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
I love this idea of everything that we've just sort of finished with. And let's go back to that observation that you had earlier, which is that this presumably lesbian or bisexual woman saw herself in this film, right? Like, we've always been here and we've always been doing that work. And even if it's not out and proud like we're seeing in contemporary queer horror, I just love this idea that we've always seen ourselves on screen. And sometimes it's just we had to hide it because the straight people were so scared of us.
But you're reaching, Joe.
Oh my God. There's nothing queer about this movie at all. It's just a lady who's afraid of sex.
There aren't women kissing in this movie. What queerness are you possibly saying?
Oh my God. Like people are going to hate my book. Please don't come after me.
Whereas I think a lot of
scared.
people are going to love your book, Heather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People just don't know how to analyze film. It's fine. But yes, that is Cat People, everybody. Heather, thank you so much for coming to talk about this. You've brought some wonderful insight to this conversation.
Oh, that was like my pleasure. It really was. I feel very like, yay, I just want to go watch Cat People again.
It's just nice to revisit too, right? Like there's something satisfying about going back to a classic film because I don't know, like I don't have this movie in heavy rotation, so I was so happy for an opportunity / excuse to go back and watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like I mean, I feel like I'm just stumping now at this point in time, but like I think all 9 films that Lewton made at RKO are like all of the 9 horror films. I think he made 10 films there, but there's one that like I think they all are worthy of a watch, especially the last 3 that have Karloff in them, because they gave like Karloff felt rescued by those films in a way because he was allowed to have a media role that was outside the universal world. And like the influence of Lewton, I'm like Lewton, but the influence of Lewton, like let's just not forget, like Jacques Tourneur went on to make, I don't know if you guys have covered Night of the Demon yet.
Not.
No, but I cover it on another podcast because we double featured it with Drag Me to Hell.
Oh, awesome. Well, I think it's a great film. And I think that it's really clear that I keep saying Lewton's name. So I should kind of like admonish myself in the sense that I think filmmaking is a collaborative art and that these people all came together and they were greater than the sum of their parts and they made these amazing films. But I think that the influence of this time is clearly on Eye of the Demon. And then fucking Lewton gave both Mark Robson, who went on to make Valley of the Dolls, and they gave Robert Wise, basically, The Haunting is one of the best horror films ever made, in my opinion.
So good.
And the influence of that is also undeniable. Maybe not so much in West Side Story and The Sound of Music, but...
Can't win them all.
Can't win them all.
Well, okay, well, Heather, let everyone know. So where can they find you on social media?
I'm at Queer for Fear on Instagram. That's it. Okay. That's it. That's all I do.
Period.
Like full stop. Queer for Fear on Instagram.
Well, please go follow her. I took a peep at your Instagram today, and you've got wonderful like little mini essays on the films you're watching when you post them on there. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm doing is the entire book that I wrote was based on a survey that happened. It's the largest empirical study in horror studies, and it's just all queers. Yes. So 4,107 horror-loving queers did a survey, and I had asked everyone to give their top 5 favorite horror films. And now I decided somewhere a few years ago, it was a good idea to commit to watching all 4,187 of them. And that is what I am doing. So, and I try to take the high road, but sometimes I don't.
Well, I mean, not all of those movies have been winners. Like, as queers, sometimes we have questionable tastes, and I love that those tastes also get reflected in your musings and hopefully in your book. But I guess one of the things that I would do a plug for is, folks, obviously we need to keep an eye out for when the book comes out, but hopefully you're seeing yourself in Heather's work, because we helped to distribute that survey when you were doing it. So you may see one of your own favorite films reflected in both the book as well as Heather's posts.
If you did it.
If you didn't, then fuck you. You contributed nothing.
Nothing. I mean, honestly, my entire argument ultimately is it doesn't matter the film. The entire genre is queer, and the proof is in the pudding is that someone's favorite film is a Serbian film, and someone's favorite film is Cat People 1982, and someone's favorite film is Nosferatu.
There we go.
So what I'm getting is that you don't like a Serbian film.
It's no judgment.
I will just say that I know I have to rewatch it. And I'm just like, oh, fuck, can I I asked my partner, I was like, is it a lie if I don't actually rewatch it? I said I was going to rewatch it. Yeah.
It's so funny because I like it. My husband really likes it, but I never want to watch it again. I never want to watch it again.
I saw it once and I was like, I got it. Do I have to live through those last moments? Come on.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
That's fair.
Well, okay. Well, if you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Twitter and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd, keep track of all the films we've covered. Go to our YouTube channel to check out our interviews with various horror filmmakers, as well as our monthly hangouts where we talk about hot button issues of the horror world. And if you want to chat with other listeners, please join our Facebook HorrorQueers group. If you want to show us some love, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Or if you want to give us money, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers. Today is the last day of November, so already in the Patreon this month, we've got episodes discussing the morals and ethics of true crime, episode on the horror satire The Menu, and playing a bit of catch-up this month by doing episodes on Barbarian and Smile, the sleeper hits of the fall. And of course, for our audio commentary this month, we've got one on the 10-year anniversary of The Collection, the sequel to The Collector. Rip that franchise, because we're probably never getting a third one.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely not, sadly.
But, Joe, I guess we're continuing a now annual tradition next week. What are we covering next week?
Oh boy, yeah. I'm not exactly sure how we fell into this pattern, but I'm kind of excited because we had such a fun time with our Summer of Camp series earlier. We're going to do a campy entry, a bit of a holiday entry, but most specifically, a Batman entry. So we're going to go to Schumacher territory to talk about Batman and Robin?
I will tell you this. It is obviously not a good movie, and it is a better film than Batman Forever, but it is a more watchable film than Batman Forever.
Oh, wow. Okay, we are going to have some talks, but yeah, I'm excited to get back to the tits and the ass in the bat towel.
Me as well. But until then, everyone, we can cross out cat people.
Indeed, and cross out horror queers.
Atlas Avenue, a long stretch of road that encompasses everything the city of Kennett Heights has to offer. Neon lights, traffic, crime, the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and the craziest of characters. My office was above it all. My name is James Locke, and I'm a PI.
Hello, Mr. J. How the hell you doing today?
Good, Edith. Nearly every year I have a new case. New people to meet, new clues to discover, and new problems to solve. But I do it the old-fashioned way. No technology. Nothing post-1950. Hell, I don't even listen to podcasts, but you should. Atlas Avenue Beat is a spoof of the film noir genre with goofy characters, tons of wordplay, and non-stop raunchy humor. There's also 3 whole seasons out right now with more on the way. Just search for Atlas Avenue Beat wherever you listen to podcasts or visit us online at bloody.fm.